Hello, hello, hello. It's Holly Rustick here with Grant Writing and Funding, and I'm here to help you grow capacity, increase funding, and to advance mission. Now, that might be the mission of the nonprofit that you're working at, or if you're a nonprofit consultant, like our guest today, the many different missions that you work with and the many different nonprofits you work with. So I have on the podcast today, Miss Elaina Michaels from Refonte Ventures, and she is going to be talking about a lot of different things today, but also just she's a grant writer, she's a consultant, she is out there really helping in a niche market. So we're going to be talking about how to niche down, why you might want to niche down as a consultant. And then you're also going to talk about some wins from the mentorship and just some key notes and takeaways moving forward. So welcome to the podcast, Elaina.
Thank you for having me, Holly. It's just so exciting.
Yes, I know you were just saying it's like full circle because you found me through the podcast.
Right? Yep, and here we are. So almost a year later now, and feeling like a whole new person almost.
I love it. Yeah, because you found me on the podcast, you joined the Grant Professional Mentorship, and you've been a part of that all year. It's an annual program, and oh my gosh, so many different changes in your business, in your life, and just the clarity that you've gotten. So I'm really excited to touch on that. But first, I wanted to touch on like where you're coming from, a little bit about who you are, so the folks out there listening or watching, yes, we're on YouTube, can definitely know you a little bit more. So what pulled you into grant writing?
Well, we'll kind of start with maybe a little bit of background to myself, because it is definitely your whole life experience that brings you to the point where you're like, okay, I'm going to be passionate about this and focused on it. So to start, I'm from Ohio and was raised not on a farm or anything, but I always loved animals. And so that spurred my trajectory to study animal science at Cal Poly. I was like, I don't really know what major to choose, but I like animals, so we're going to go with that. But one of the best decisions I made, and also next best decision, was taking my sheep production class at Cal Poly. And this is Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in California. And that was just so wonderful, learning what was a pivotal connection for me between the importance between animals and plants and their complete dependence upon one another. We cannot have a landscape where animals are removed from that landscape, because that's how all of our soils have been built and everything. And then that's what's propelling us to continue to grow food on it. So for so many years, animals have been removed from the landscape, and now there's what is called a regenerative movement. Lots of perhaps debate in that, but for now, regenerative is kind of the key word there, and trying to get us to bring these processes all together. So I'll try not to go down into my little tangent there, but so this is an area that I am very passionate about, and through my education and learning a lot of the soil science, range science, then doing my master's also at Cal Poly in ruminant nutrition, just being able to see really all facets of agriculture, and then being in a graduate program and being inundated in this tiny little world of like nitpicky details. And as many graduate researchers that I talk to come out and they're like, who's ever going to read my research? You're like, there's got to be more, like we have to get this out to the world. And so then it was just like, I need to pop out of my little shell and find some way I can get the word out. And so but to tie into grant writing, having a research background and having gone through a graduate degree, I think has been really helpful because I'm so detail oriented, and understanding that importance of substantiating with evidence. That's like, you've got to do that in a thesis and in a publication. So that, I think, gave me the confidence to go into writing a grant and feeling like these are the pieces I need to back it up, and how to cite the literature and all of those daunting tasks to most people, but really thrilling to me, I suppose. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The data, right? The data is always fun. As I'm a part of a nonprofit on the board, and one of the other board members says we're doing our values, right? Listing all your values, and she said, data. She was like, data is a value. So awesome. So yeah.
Proof in the pudding.
Right. I love it. We gotta base all our decisions off of data. So no, it's really, that's awesome though, how this story, your experiences have brought you to grant writing, which most people, it's not about like, oh, I'm going to join a grant writing class in college and I'm going to have a nonprofit degree and go down that trajectory. Some people do, but there's actually not like super specific like grant writing advanced degrees and all of that. There's certifications and certificates, that sort of thing, right? But to academia, there's not really robust whole problem or programs just on grant writing. So most grant writers don't come to be a grant writer, right? Through that process. It's more about something like yours, right?
It's not one of the degrees that you can acquire or that I know of. Maybe there is a school with it, but yeah.
So it's not very common, right? If they're on there. So, but definitely, bringing in your specialty and really looking at, animal science and, more science-based, and really wanting your research and the programs that you guys are looking at studying and developing to really have impact in the world. And then you were like, hey, I can also write. Maybe if I can help get programs funded that support this work, that's really where I can thrive as well. Or even to fund some of my own programs that I want to develop, right? Is that kind of where it took you to the next place?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think so the next step in that was probably my experience in my first full-time position with Natural Resources Conservation Service. I was contracted with them with a conservation organization. And so then as you're kind of getting into those adult stages of life as well after college, you're trying to figure out like, how does the money work? Like, where does the money go? How do I get it to go where I want it to when I don't have it? And also like, there are lots of people making a ton of money, but not making very good decisions with it. And I want to be able to have a say and an influence over that and share my passion to get those people to see, oh, like I shouldn't just waste my money on big cars and the next new thing. Like there's people out there that are putting food on your table so that you can eat and survive every day, and they need your help. And so it just like befuddles me how everyone eats food every day, and somehow that's not like the most important question of like, is this still going to continue? Am I going to continue being able to get food from the grocery store? Because the UN showed that in 2014, we only have about 60 harvests left. So now that's about 52 harvests on average globally from our main producing crop fields. So that's that's kind of the wake up call. And also we're seeing a lot of funding being directed in that area, whether people know it or not, whether they're looking out at those things.
Thank you for, that's really interesting. And you're right. A lot of people don't pay attention to that, right? To that very important thing called survival. And that's interesting to know too. Like, these are definitely issues that should be funded, and just really more attention and focus on, right? And part of that funding can come through grants, right? So and just as a side note, if you guys are hearing background noise, there's construction going on outside my house. I apologize. Might hear some of that. But, you know, definitely, I love that you're tying in your passion with your consultancy and saying, hey, let's connect more money to these programs, and we can actually, you know, do this, and you can focus on those types of programs, those types of clients. So this is kind of where we're getting to. You can be a consultant and you can absolutely niche down and focus on a certain area, like you have done so well, right, yourself. So yeah, even the name of your consultancy and even the website, I definitely recommend everyone go to refonteventures.com, right? That is the right.
Correct. Yes.
And that's
Refonte Ventures, Refont with an E at the end, but it's a silent E.
Yes, and definitely go there, because when you go there, you're going to see this beautiful picture of bison in the front, and then you're going to see like all of these different elements of the earth, animals, right, the land, and all of that's connecting with the sales copy, or all the different copy you have on your website, and just the way you brand even. So it's very specific and it's very niched, and a lot of consultants out there. I know you guys are going, but if I niche too much, I won't have enough clients. Well, Elaina's showing that's absolutely not true. You've actually gone from one client last year before you founded the mentorship. Now you have, let's see, you have 2 long-term clients, plus you've had 3 other clients, plus you have more clients on your wait list. And you're definitely looking at even hiring somebody else to come into your consultancy. You can absolutely grow when you niche down, because you become so clear on those different types of funding and communicating with those nonprofits or organizations. So what does Refonte mean?
Great way to say all that. Okay, so Refonte is a French word that, goodness, I can't take all the credit. A family friend of my husband's family, he's an architect in San Francisco. His company is called Ronin, and he was really helpful at helping me craft this, and we had some brainstorming sessions. So he was like, Refonte, and but essentially meaning to repair or improve things to the way that they're meant to be. And that definition just really resonates with everything that I'm about. Like, we all, ever since COVID especially, have all just like had this longing sense for community, and like knowing that that's a part of who we are as humans, and also a longing to be outside more and be more connected with where our food comes from. And so to me, that is what it means when I say what we were meant to be. And the way things were intended to function. And other meanings of the word are recasting, rewriting, actually, is another translation. And so all of that just ties really well together. It also goes with this whole regeneration movement of these rewords, right? So we're at a point in history, we're redoing the past, learning from our mistakes, and then the ventures kind of keeps it broad. It has that sense of there's some sort of funding your journey. And also me being a very outdoorsy person, myself and my husband, this adventure kind of
Oh,
idea. So
yeah.
yeah, that brings a lot of it together.
That's great. And I love how really decided, how do I want my brand for my company to really represent what I believe in? So can you kind of take us down that process? Like you said, you did a brainstorming session, but like when you really thought about, I want to do this company, or, I want to have this consulting company, like you didn't just go to like, I want to go to cookie cutter templates and figure out how to do that. And you know what I mean? You really put more meaning and thought behind it. So how did you really figure that out?
Yeah, well, I have to say, my cousin's girlfriend, Ariel, she helped me a lot with building out a brand. So we did kind of my first brand strategy, and asking those deep questions like, who is it that you want to reach and what are you doing? So that was kind of like the initial, and I guess tying into this whole idea of like having a niche, to me, it's more important than trying to cater to everyone. I think we talk a lot about that in the mentorship of like, well, don't just take on this client because you need the money and like you're desperate. Like you and all of us, of course, are coming from a place where we want to be a freelancer. We want to be creative. We want to do the things that make us feel fulfilled. And so for me, having this specific niche, I'm passionate. I want to be passionate about every single grant that I'm writing and every single client that I'm working with. And I want to market for them just as much as they do. And so I think that that is an important piece to just making everyone's life feel well spent.
I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, and you're right, because we always talk about, let's first look in, what is your why? Why do you want to create this company,
Mhm.
right? And for most
Mhm.
people, it is a combination of finding meaning in their lives, creating more flexibility of a schedule, creating higher income, cracking that glass ceiling that they may find at traditional jobs, and being able to work on things that they love their job, like they want to wake up and be there.
Yeah.
So there's so many of those that intersect. So if we just start taking on and thinking scarcity mindset and taking on anything and everything and getting then problematic clients, and we're so
Mhm.
conflicted then from our why to our
Mhm.
actual, right? So then we're like, why am I doing this now? Right. So I love that you were really clear about that. And you said, okay, this is where I'm going to start. And I want to start it right. I really want to be able to take meaning and everything, but I also want to fast track this, right? To be able to make an income, because obviously we have to still provide monies, right, to come in the door and to provide the lifestyle
Mhm.
that we want. And to
Mhm.
also get a reciprocation from the work that we give, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's so cool that you have been able to do that in such a quick way too, like being so meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And if I might add too, I think another benefit is just from the client's perspective. It's so much easier to communicate when you're on the same page of like having someone that understands your field
mm,
communicating with you. So I have a lot of clients that come to me that are involved in the Savory Institute, which is a global organization focused on holistic management, which I'm an accredited professional of. And they're especially excited about the idea of working with me because I have that background and I can speak the same language.
yeah.
And I understand this whole concept of not exploiting the land in what we're doing and not exploiting the people in what we're doing, or um, not thinking about the money. We think about all of those things together.
Yeah.
So that's important to those people, and it's really easy to communicate that way.
I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, definitely. It's not only in your branding, but it's the way you communicate, right? You have that same science background too, so it's easier for you to have conversations about their programs and program development. And then even for, I imagine, the funding opportunity announcements, when you're looking at those grant opportunities, that language they're speaking to, right, is very familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You're not suddenly thrown into the weeds of like, oh geez, I don't understand anything about this grant program or what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
So it makes it easier, the learning curve.
I love that. So really, the niches are really where you can find meaning. It's also where you can get more clients because now you're talking that language and they're attracted to you because of being able to communicate. And you're going to get better grant funding as well, those securing different grants, right? Because you really understand those programs as well, and you're really well tuned to the language and the priorities of the different federal agencies that may be directing money. It's like you said in the beginning, there's more money is now moving towards this way, but people still have to apply for it. They still, a lot of them have to go through that grant application process.
Yeah. And I will just say, like, kind of part of the passion comes from all these people out there that have really good ideas and just need to have the right words to do it and understand the format, which take years to do. So
Yeah,
it's really, I think just in general, that's a great part about the work that we're able to do as grant writers.
I love that. So yeah, so, and I apologize again, my cat's knocking something outside.
Gotta have the fur babies. Keep things exciting.
Going on? I'm in a different room. It's like, but I love that. And I love, you also wanted to talk about, before we kind of talk about your tips, just to talk about the mentorship a little bit more and your experience from it, since we'll be opening the doors again soon. And I just want to, from your perspective, being in the mentorship program, what are some of the biggest changes you've seen in your very new business, right? To say, oh my gosh, like this is now, I'm a year in, I'm, a little over a year in my business now. And these are the big changes that I've seen and maybe the big impact it's had on your business.
Yeah, I know we talked a lot about understanding your prices, and that was a big thing for me. And I've just loved a lot of the books that we've gone through to help me with understanding that. Because it's a common discussion of like, oh, I don't want to charge too much, and I really want to be affordable. But what I've learned is you can't grow your impact unless you can take care of yourself. And also just in general for business, there's a lot more behind the scenes than most people know about when they come from an 8 to 5. And I've been learning a little bit about that. And especially if you start getting employees, which I'm not at that point yet, but then you got all of their healthcare and things, and you want to take care of them if you want to keep them around. And so that happens by making sure that they're adequately taken care of, money wise. So that was one big thing. And I think just developing some understanding of how to have your own schedule as a freelancer and keep motivated and keep on task, and setting those sort of strategic blocks we learned about, and your buffer blocks. You got to answer all the emails, but you also got to take the time to do the deep work. And so understanding those priority areas, and Holly's really good about just making sure that we are all doing our self-care, and she gave us our little package. Thank you for that, by the way, of our little socks and soap baths and so
Yeah.
oh yeah. So but when I'm getting my massage, as I told you earlier, at the end of this week. So but it's taxing on us, especially starting out on our own. So there's a lot of being able to commiserate with the grant writing group, but get also very practical help with how to deal with that and what we need to think about, um, and just tools. I think the biggest thing, the tools and a framework, because you come into this, especially for someone that maybe didn't write grants in their former job, or it looked slightly different than what it does as a freelancer. You need to kind of have a frame of reference. So being able to see what other people are doing is really helpful. And then you may not do the same thing, but you can tailor it to yourself or your own area of expertise. So all of that has been good and really helpful for me.
I love that. And I love that you've also increased your prices during the mentorship, like definitely working through that and, working through a lot of that. Why am I having, why am I underpricing and working through those things? I know you've had a lot of growth there. So I think that's really fantastic. And just moving through, like you said, getting so much feedback. I love how you guys work together as well and say, hey, this is a proposal I'm going to send in. Can I get feedback? Like I need feedback. Right? And
Yeah.
people to be like, oh yeah, add this clause in there or increase your price a little bit or whatever it is, right? Add in a feature benefit, maybe this. And really working through that, I've seen a lot of growth for you all just to be able to share that, because a lot of people, they don't want to share that stuff. They're so like private about it because they don't know if it's right and all of that. But the mentorship allows you to do that with no shame, comparison, or whatever, right? So
we definitely had a comfortable space built where we were able to just at a certain point, it's like, okay, here's what I'm dealing with. Yeah.
I love it. So I'm so glad you got so many benefits out of being the mentorship, and we've gotten a lot of value having you in there too and getting your feedback.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're doing things very specifically. So it's really cool to see the growth in your consulting company. So I applaud you very much. Yeah, I'm so proud of you. All right. So I know you also wanted to share with all the listeners or the viewers out there something as well. You wanted to share about biggest things that are important to you that you have found as well. So and then you also have a freebie for us. So if you could break those down, that would be great.
Yeah, which kind of segues nicely from just what the mentorship provided, is just leveraging and utilizing your community, and being able to have that, then having more support for going forwards. And as a nonprofit or a land-based organization, whatever you are, the most important thing that you should look to first is your human resources, the resources of the people and the community and your board, and bringing all those people together. And so I'm kind of working on a little series here, which is just what to do before you apply. And yeah, I think so often we get a lot of people that are like, there's the perfect opportunity, I need to apply for it right now. And you've got maybe 1 or 2 months and you're like, okay, we could do this, and nobody knows you exist. So that right there is kind of the first problem. And there's things that people or organizations should know before they even start getting tempted by grants or funding opportunities. They should know that they need to get themselves out there. They need to build community. So I'll just go through this checklist here. Just looking at what are other people and groups doing that may be able to bolster a part of the big picture that you're proposing. Not reinventing the wheel. How can they help? And then we can say, hey, look at them for helping us, always highlighting those other groups, building them up. This is really just a lesson to humanity. It's not all about me. It's about what we can do as a team. And then and of course, contacting them and demonstrating how you yourself are doing what you're saying you're doing, and just being a reputable organization. So that would be kind of the building trust aspect. And I think the thing I've learned too is just being very direct and clear about what you're asking. Kind of in all these emails, things get muddled and you're like, oh, I'm writing this grant application and blah, 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 here's our vision, blah, blah. They're like, what do you want from me? So so there's definitely ways that you can do that. I think the easiest I have found is just give them the template. Here's the bullets, what we're asking. And the next part is then that is an opportunity for them to share with their team and discuss. So the last tidbit on this resource I have here is just giving them time, because they need time, and it takes time to communicate with all the inundation of emails we get. And it takes time for them to pull maybe their board together or the community that they work with. And so give them time, and you don't want to be that impatient person. So that's just one step in the before you apply. And as you're a new organization, is something you can be thinking about right away.
I love that,
So,
because, you know, a lot of grants, they ask, I mean, one of the main questions that you're going to see in there is, how does this program tie in with the community impact, right? Or have community impact, or tie in with the community goals, or tie into, you know, that kind of broader scale impact, because a lot of funding sources want to know it's not isolated. Their money won't just be spent very isolated, where there is no ripple effect into the broader community or the broader social movement. Right. So being able, and we do, like you said, get also busy and in nonprofits, and then you're kind of just stuck in your silo. But if you have those partnerships developed and you're working on those as a part of your strategy, right? And just a part of your wanting to know that, yeah, if my partner is doing this in the community and I'm doing something similar, what if we do a fundraiser together? Or what if we do something together? What if we collab? And then when you have those relationships, why it's also important, so this is such a good point you bring up, is because then when you need a letter of support or an MOU or whatnot, you already have the relationship. You're not developing it from scratch where they're like, if I trust you, I don't even really know you, and you want me to go in on this project with you? Who are you again? Right. So that's
and then even better is when you put yourself out there and tell people, wow, you're doing amazing things. Like, here's what we're doing. You share your story. Maybe you don't hear back from them for a while, but then you might months later find out they're applying for something and want you to be a part of it. And then you don't have to do much of the work. So those are kind of like little expert tips.
I love that.
Always good to make connections.
Yeah. So collaborating, building relationships, right? And how do people do that? How do they build relationships? Like, what is their best way kind of forward?
Well, going to like local community events. So of course, like maybe having a booth, and with organizations that I've been working with, like nonprofit farms, just having those volunteer days, getting people out to the farm, and then going to the schools, maybe doing talks or do talks at your local library. So those are definitely some ways that you can do that. But a lot of it just with our very distant communications that we have now. If you're just looking around the internet, trying to find people that are doing similar things, send an email and reach out or give them a phone call.
I love it. Follow them on social media, see the events that they have coming up. Right?
Yes, totally. Follow on social media, tag and share what they're doing. They're like, oh, thanks for sharing. And then you're like, yeah, we love what you're doing. So yeah.
Love that. That's so awesome. Yeah, it was that's actually how I developed a relationship with a mentor, and how I got a mentor was I was reading her book, And I quoted her in an Instagram post and tagged her because I was like, I quoted her and I tagged her. I was like, I love
Oh
this.
yeah, great.
It's awesome. And then she replied and I was like, oh my gosh, she replied. And then we just developed
Yeah.
this whole relationship and started talking, and it was like, it was really, really cool. And if we wouldn't have those types of platforms to connect so personably, like, I don't think that would have ever happened, so yeah, definitely there's so many different ways that you can connect with folks out there, right?
Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
collaborate, get out, go to events, conferences, things that they're interested in. The local library, yes, there's still things that happen in the local library, right? So
Always.
your community centers, all of that, and any kind of the social movements, right? So maybe you're advocating for something and there's some kind of protest happening and you're going to meet people there that agree with you on that movement, right? So there's so many different ways you can move forward. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's one of your major tips is, hey, collab. Don't wait until you need to for a grant. Get out there ahead of it. Right. So, and then that checklist, is there other goodies that you wanted to mention on there too?
That kind of covers the full checklist, but really, that all stems from one piece of gold that was given to me, which was just layering the benefits. Those are the two key words in putting together a proposal. The more you can layer the benefits, the better investment it is to the funder, because they're achieving more with their dollars, with your proposal. So yeah, that kind of is the keyword behind all of this.
Yes,
Getting
benefits, the outcomes, right? And in grants, we see that with outcomes and logic models, in our objectives and our activities, in the budget, you can always layer all of those benefits through all of those different pieces, right? So that's really, really good to keep that at the forefront of your mind, right? What are the benefits to the funding source?
Yeah, and that's just the whole the whole idea behind being a resourceful human being. What are all my resources and what's already out there that I can use without expending extra energy and money? So yeah.
Well, this has been great, Elaina. I've learned so much, and I'll just hear like how you kind of approach, your company in a very holistic way. And I love that we go back to those niches. Do check out Elaina's website. If you guys are a nonprofit farm or a nonprofit, in this industry with the land, animals, do reach out to Refonte Ventures, and that's REFONTE Ventures.com. You can definitely the beautiful website anyway, so check it out. But just in that perspective too, if you're looking for someone who really understands your needs, definitely check out Elaina for you to write grants for, or so she can write grants for you. And if you're a nonprofit consultant or a grant writer and you really want to say, how do I niche down, do check it out too and see what you've done, because it's a great example to show. And check out the show notes so you can get that free checklist that you put together, Elaina. So thank you for
yeah, I will be sure to share that. Yeah, I'll also say, just for any grant writers out there that are specifically interested in the agricultural world, agricultural education being a big part that I focused on with like farm to school and stuff, I would love to meet you, because this takes definitely more than one person, and bringing those ideas and expertise together. Those are what our farmers and ranchers need. They really need a full force behind them, helping them. So would love to talk to any other people that share the same passion that are out there. So yeah, and thank you, Holly, for giving me the mic. This is exciting.
Yeah, this is so fun. So I'm hoping the background noise with all the construction and the cat wasn't too much. But apologize for that. But I definitely wanted to talk to you and make sure we did this podcast, because you really have a lot to offer. That's very valuable. So thank you for coming on the podcast and doing this full circle. So before we close out, any other words before that you'd like to go?
I wanted to throw in my my good lesson from working with my grandfather of late and in cooking and how cooking relates to grant writing. So my first class with him, as we did this is kind of funny because we were doing a fundraising event, and we planned cooking for a week. And the first recipe we started with was the epitome of recipe following, which was Julia Child's chocolate mousse. And if you did not follow this recipe to a T, it would not turn out right. So next time you're going to write a grant, especially a federal grant, follow it as if you are following Julia Child's chocolate mousse recipe. Give yourself ample time to do so.
Because it's delicious when it's done right. Just like your grant will be. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's so special. So thank you so much. All right. So for all of the show notes from today and for everything that we've talked about, Elaina, her downloadable, where to find her, and you want to email, reach out to her that she wants to connect with you, you're in the agricultural space, we'll have that all in the show notes. So thanks again, Elaina, for coming on the Grant Writing and Funding podcast, and we'll see you in the
Thank you, Holly.